Welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. Big Sky howdy, everybody, and welcome back to a sea monstery edition of DukeChat. I got Papa Craig back with me, who was on one of my expeditions last spring, and we talked a lot about this kind of stuff. Actually, during the original recording, we ran out of enough time to actually put it in there, and we've talked about it a couple times since then. But as he referenced in the original show, he actually spent a bunch of time, 10 years on a fishing trawler up in Alaska?
15 years on a longline fish boat.
Longline fish boat. Okay, I totally messed it up. But yeah, it was something, and it was up there in Alaska, and he was on the boat. Lots of interesting things happened. So we're going to talk about that because, one story in particular is something that hardly anybody, you got a better chance of seeing a Sasquatch than you got of seeing one of these things. And then the other thing is, of course, some updates and whatnot on general Sasquatch topics. You know, Papa Craig is over in the mountains in northeastern Washington State, and there's Oregon. Oregon, excuse me, and there's a lot of Bigfoot reports out of that area. So, welcome back to the show, Papa Craig.
Hello. How are you guys doing? So, yeah, I used to be a longline fisherman. I decided I needed to go make a living. I was being a hermit after I got out of the Army. And
before you go on to that, for all the benefit of everybody else who hasn't been a longline fisherman or may not know about it, how does longline fishing work?
Well, you know what a trot line is, and a long line is a giant trot line. We would have coils of line about 100 fathoms, so that's 600 feet long. And every 3 feet to 42 inches, we would splice a piece of paracord looking stuff in there. It's a little smaller than paracord. And we would splice that into the 3/8 inch nylon line. And we would have a whole bunch of hooks on each line spliced in there. We'd put a hook on the end of each little leader, and then we would cruise along the ocean. We'd throw out a buoy line, stretch that out about 400 fathoms of buoy line. That's 2,400 feet. And then we would throw out an anchor, and that anchor was also tied to the long line, which started feeding the line with the hooks and the bait out the back of the boat. And we'd stretch that out for about 3 miles, another anchor, buoy line, buoys, and let it all sink to the bottom and go set a couple more. And then we would come back to the first one and start pulling it aboard and picking the fish off the line. Now we fished for halibut and black cod and rockfish. So any of those 3 fish we would pick off, and any of the fish we didn't want, we could just twist the hook out of their mouth and drop them back in the ocean. So it didn't kill them. But we almost caught almost nothing but the target species. So
That's pretty cool. So this is you're fishing in the same region as that one show, The Most Lethalist Catch or whatever it was.
Deadliest Catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fished we fished the coast of the Gulf of Alaska. Well, we'd be about 100 miles offshore where the water gets that deep. And we would fish from Sitka out past Dutch Harbor up into the Bering Sea and then cruise back home. That would take from March till July. And it's kind of fun. A lot of the years when I was up there, the sperm whales learned how to pick our fish lines. The killer whales were great. They would just come in a pod. They would hang out off the left front of the boat, which is the port bow. And one of them or two of them at a time would dive down under the boat while we're pulling that line up, and the fish are coming up on the line, and they would pick one here and pick that one and pick that one, and them killer whales didn't leave you anything but crumbs. Maybe, set of lips on the line every now and then,
Damn seagoing coyotes anyway.
I know, and then we started seeing sperm whales around the boat once in a while. And that was really cool because they're gigantic things. They're 60, 70 feet long, and our boat was 70 feet long, and it was kind of scary. And they'd come right up beside the boat and look me in the eye with a big old eye like this, And they're kind of squinty-eyed, so they don't really have a big eye when you look at them. But looking right at it, looking into it, kind of heebie-jeebies. But then you see a sparkle in it and a look on their face or something, the way they act like a big silly Labrador retriever, where's the grub?
Hey, can you guys give me some grub?
As a matter of fact, we nicknamed them Dopey Dick. And we nicknamed the killer whales Free Lunch Willie.
Free Lunch Willie. So who was nabbing more of the fish? Was it Dopey Dick or Free Lunch Willie's?
Free Lunch Willie would not. He would get every one of them. Dopey Dick would use the long line like a dental floss, and we'd pull it up right through his big old teeth, and that would knock some of the fish off. And
some of them went in his mouth even, I bet.
Yeah, some of them went in his mouth, and he'd get about a third of them. And those, and we used to yell at him and laugh. And sometimes we'd just put the line back down and run over to the other end, see if we could get some more of them fish up before he messed with it. Sometimes the big goofy son of a gun would bite the line in half.
Well, that's not helpful.
No. But it's kind of interesting to be on that 70-foot boat pulling up a 3/8-inch nylon line, and you also have a 70-foot whale on the end of that line swimming around. So anyway, but there was weird things that would happen when them sperm whales were around, because that's a half a mile down there almost, and you're pulling that up and you're leaving a scent trail that can't be beat, when you're pulling up these black cods. That was all the fish's favorite high omega-3 fatty acid fish. And they're about 5 pounds, maybe, I don't know, 2 to 3 feet long. Mm-hmm. And they looked like a channel catfish kind of, only different face. Anyway, there was, we would catch, sometimes there's these baby giant squid get snagged on our line, because we've pulled a few of them aboard in the early 90s. And
how deep of water were you in where that was happening? Because I know a lot of that area up there used to be Thuringia before it got flooded, so it really isn't that deep in a lot of it.
Well,
were you in an area where it was fairly deep?
Yeah, where there's a big bench that goes out about 100 miles offshore. And then once you get 100 miles offshore, you're out to the edge. And so it's dropping down.
And then it drops
deep.
off. Yeah.
to thousands of feet
Into
and thousands. And
the gloomy
yeah,
Pacific Ocean where Cthulhu lives.
yes, and we would fish or drop our long line right along that hillside because there'd be an upwelling of current and all kinds of feed and all kinds of fish. And when that came up, we would just, well, what I'm trying to say is strange things would happen. We would get these baby squid, giant squid, 12 to 18 foot long squid, and once in a blue moon, we'd drag one aboard when we were close enough to town, and we'd take it to the fuel dock and show everybody, and then it'd be rotten, and we'd throw it away, and then we'd tell somebody, and they'd say no till we showed them a picture. Nope, you couldn't. There ain't no such thing. And I go, oh, yeah, there is such a thing, and here it is, the big long tentacle. The double long tentacle.
Yeah.
And so on this one day, it was later on in my fishing career, we were fishing, trying to finish off the whole season, I think, or at least the summer. And the sperm whales showed up. And that's always a weird thing, because here's what's really going on down there. Is then we pull up that line full of fish and that scent trail, and them giant squid, especially the baby giant squid, get on that line and start picking them fish off, and we can't really tell they're doing it. We can feel the line wiggle and stuff. And then I know the sperm whales using the line like a dental floss, because you can see the line marks on their head, you can see the streaks. And then there's suction cup marks on their head too, and face this big around, 3 feet around, 2.5, 3 feet around. And when we saw that, we knew there was creepy stuff down there. And so this one day, I kept seeing the babies coming up on the line, but they'd get loose just before I could get hold of them, and they're 12 feet long. That's bigger than one of them Humboldts. I don't know, getting a hold of one of them's kind of fun. Just don't let them get you with that dang beak. No. And the sperm whale was acting up. He kept coming over and saying hi to me and swimming around weird. And so I'm standing there watching this sperm whale coming up. He breached out of the water, and then he curved on back down in with this big old tail sticking straight up in the air. And we got a picture of that. But anyway, I'm just standing there on the rail of the boat, looking at the water, looking to see if I can see the whale way down there. Alaska has really clear water. And I saw something, it looked like brown. I thought maybe I was seeing the whale, maybe something's drifting down there that's going to tangle up our line. I was trying to figure out what the heck it was, and all of a sudden it flashed to white. And this gigantic patch of the ocean below me, I'm just looking right down the side of the boat, was turning white, and then it flashed to red, and I could see that it was moving along, and then I saw the one side of the I don't know what you call them, fins or something, fluttering along,
How far underwater was it?
Oh, it was about 10 feet at the most, 10 feet below my eyes, so it was right beside the boat, but it was high enough it couldn't go under the boat. Right. And looking side to side,
it was alongside the boat, and you're seeing
right,
it actually flash different colors.
Yes, and it flashed different colors, and it was every bit as long as the boat. That would be counting the tentacles. I think the squid itself was 30 feet long, and I don't know how long out those super long tentacles went, if it even had them. They
several times the length of the body.
Yeah, unless the whales bite them off, I don't know. Anyway, I saw that flash, and I'm going like, what? And then it just sank, out of sight. And by the time it got out of sight, I knew I had just seen a giant squid, and I got the heebie-jeebies big time and just backed away from the rail to the middle of the boat, looked at the rest of the crew and went, "There are two sea monsters.
Yeah.
There's one right under us."
Oh, God. You know, and the scary thing about that is that's, you know, like, I think around what they presume to be the maximum limit for a squid right now is probably about the size that you saw. And I'd be more than willing to lay all the pennies that I got that they're wrong about the maximum size of a giant squid. And especially because, look, at as big as the one that you saw was, you think even at the base of its arms or its tentacles in width were big enough for a 3 foot across sucker to be on there?
Yeah. No, not the one. I mean, if it was up close, maybe. If it was up close to the beak where it grabbed
Right.
that whale. But no, those marks showed for sure there was bigger stuff down there.
And again, that's pretty scary. You know, there was that report of that, what was it, modern high-tech destroyer down there off the coast of South America that ran into something that messed up the bottom of the boat so bad they had to go back to port and get it fixed. And from what I heard, several several objects embedded into the bottom of the hull, and one of them appeared to be the big closet around those suckers, actually stuck into the bottom of the hull. Yeah.
Yeah, they got them little, I'll just call them claws, but they're little hooks, yeah.
Yeah, they basically are. They got that ring, and then it's got these little hooks all the way around it, and that's how they hold on, because it grabs right into your flesh.
And that's how you can see the mark on the whale.
Yeah, and the whales got that nice thick blubber on them, so they can withstand that kind of damage. A lot of the sperm whales have some pretty epic scarring on them, because apparently they like deep sea calamari.
They do, and they definitely, I think they're down there eating the baby giant squid, and Mommy comes and tries to whoop them.
Mama might win sometimes. Maybe there's other times where they win.
It sure looks like a close fight.
That's some epic stuff. You know, we still don't have the kind of equipment that could get down there and film anything like that. Wait another 20, 30 years, and, you know, if there's still anything live in the Pacific after Fukushima gets done, we might be able to actually get some video of that.
Right. But
what other kind of strange phenomena did you witness out there? Because, you know, as we all know, the seas are the most paranormal part on the planet. All sailors are incredibly superstitious. And as soon as they leave port and the cameras are off, all kinds of weird stuff happens every time.
Yeah.
Or that's what they would have you believe. But what other kinds of interesting, weird stuff happened during your 15 years of being in the frozen Arctic waters?
Just boats breaking in bad weather. We really did not have a lot of, I can't think of anything really, really strange and superstitious. One time we saw this silver ball sitting off the ocean. I don't know what in the heck would be. It looked like a damn weather balloon, but it wasn't. It was metal, and it was round, and it was just sitting there floating, and it didn't move for the whole hour that we could see it.
Do you have any idea? It's probably hard to tell, but being that you were out at sea all the time, any idea how far away and how big?
I thought it was a couple miles away, because we were having a hard time. I remember 2 to 5 miles away. Thought it was about as big around as, probably 15 to 20 feet in diameter. And didn't do a thing. And we looked at it and watched it, and we didn't get too excited about it or think we'd seen anything really cool. But at the end we went, well, that's officially a UFO.
Yeah.
We haven't got a clue what that is.
Flying object, and we can't identify it. So that is the classical description.
I will tell you one of the weirdest things I ever saw, and we were having a big bunch of solar flares and cruising up the Gulf of Alaska probably to Homer. And I think it was March, and we're out in the ocean, way out, I mean way, way, way out, and it was the flattest, calmest, crystal clear night, what we'd call hot and dusty. just smooth. I've never seen the ocean smoother than that. Only a couple of times ever have I seen it. And I'm on midnight wheel watch, and all of a sudden the northern lights come out, and it was just beautiful. And then half the sky filled up with northern lights, and then they started turning colors, and they started waving, and then they started strobing, and the whole sky filled up with northern lights. It was like enough to, you know, make you puke. All that moving around and colors and changing. It was enough to get you that way. You'd have to cover your eyes. I'd have to cover my eyes every now and then, and okay, they're still here.
Wow.
And it was so beautiful, so amazing. I'm going like, does this ever happen? But you know, then I found out it does happen when there's big solar flares.
Yep.
And oh, it was something. I went down and woke up the next guy for his wheel watch. And I said, get your sunglasses or get ready because it's really freaky up there. And he went up there. It was like being in a kaleidoscope or something, you know, a giant kaleidoscope. Just, I couldn't believe it. But that strobing was drive you friggin' nuts for hours, you know.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Man, I wish you guys would have had some high-quality video cameras right about that, and that would have been great to get on video.
Yeah, I know. We had cheap pieces of junk. And I don't even have the video anymore of anything. I probably wouldn't have thought of that. That was just a freak-out deal there with that. But that's all I can think of right now. I was just watching the Sitka herring shootout on TV because looking for a picture of the boat, and I found this thing we used to do at the start of every year, the Sitka sacro herring. They're fishing for herring caviar right outside the town of Sitka, and there's 50 boats have permits, and the herring are crammed into enough room for about 20 boats.
Oh, God.
And so these guys, they, you know, when the gun goes off, it's time to start fishing, and they crash, and they're crashing and bashing into each other. These big old, you know, $500,000 to $1 million boats, just bashing these big old metal boats into each other. Boom, boom, boom. They're shooting at each other. And they're surrounded, you know, some people are, but they surround these herring and catch, you know, if they catch 900 tons of them or something like that. That's how many tons of herring they can get in those seine nets, and that's $1 million. So that's why they're fighting so hard. But it's quite there's a lot of YouTube videos. Sitka herring. It'll crack you up. It'll blow your mind. It's something to see. These guys are nuts.
Yeah.
And that's how I used to start my year, was either get on one of those or get on a tender and go see if we could keep the boats and nets from sinking because they had so many fish in them.
Well, you know, getting back to the camera thing, you guys didn't have a good camera with you to get the northern lights, and if you had, you might not have thought of it. But just because you had a camera with you wouldn't necessarily have meant that you would have got anything anyway. I mean, like, you had a really decent camera with you when you came up here to visit the mountains and the Sasquatch with us, and still not managing to get anything on it. Although you were trying constantly. You shot like over an hour of video. You got 1 minute.
Yeah, I know. It looked just like everything's working just fine and going. And then I brought it home and plugged it in the computer. And what are all these streaks? What's this, you know, this is totally black. Nothing. What are all these streaks? Blurriness. And oh, here's a picture. It's not pointed at anything, no matter.
Yeah, again, I felt sorry for you because you got back and you're like, Duke, I got 1 minute of usable video and like 4 pictures, and I don't know what happened to all the rest of it. No, the reason I bring that up is because you still got that same camera and you've been using it ever since. Has it ever done that?
No, it's never done any of that. Didn't do it before, and it hasn't done it since.
The large economy size X, but the Monster X has been knocked down. If you look really careful, you may see Mr. Sullivan hiding in the trees. Life is good. And Mr. Michael Matt is documenting the trees.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's you know, we were talking about that earlier. Michael getting interference with his cell phone, which he uses for recording. He's walking back from the big teepee there, and he walks underneath an arch structure while he's talking, and the phone turns off. And he gets a few feet and he starts it up again. He's like, I don't know what just happened down there, but I should be able to actually record for 2 minutes. And I had about 20 seconds in, and I walked under that arch, and the phone turned itself off.
That's there's so many people that talk about their cameras being messed with.
Well, and the other thing is, you know, like we were also talking about this earlier. The first time we found the one secondary giant X structure, Mike was just wandering around down in that ravine, and he found it. And he's trying to film it, and his camera won't go into focus.
Right.
So his cell phone. So he points it at the ground, and as soon as it has the ground to focus on, it goes back into focus. And he brings it up, and it does the same thing again. So then he goes, is somebody at the infrasound messing with my camera or something? So he makes some kind of a counter wave to, you know, whatever. Well, whatever was going on, all of a sudden it stopped, and he's got it back in focus. Now, that's the first time, but this has happened to him 3 times now.
Yeah,
And
I watched that happen that time and had a hard time believing it, going, it's got to be something else. But
yeah,
then that's what I've always done with Bigfoot is, you know,
well, that's what,
with
you know,
anything
trying to
about Bigfoot.
trying to
Can't
be
be.
scientific-y about it, you know, whatever theory we're working with here, it's is it repeatable? Okay, it's mysteriously not going into focus. I'm going to try humming again. Hey, now it's in focus.
I
Is
know.
that happening? We welcome your theories. We're just doing it, and it seems to work.
Yeah, you go ahead and figure it out, guys, because we're just observing it.
Yeah, we're just like trying to figure out ways to make our camera actually go into focus, especially when it's probably aimed at one of them that's trying to hide, and they're the one that's making it go out of focus, so you can't get to it.
Right.
I had Robert Boston, Bigfoot in Germany, looking at some really old video I filmed about 6-7 years ago. And I'm just standing there on this mountain, and I'm doing this slow pan around all the trees. And he said, every time you almost got the camera on one, it would go out of focus until you got the camera past it, and then it would focus again.
How in the
And you
heck
could
did
hear
they
it going,
do that?
trying to put itself back into focus over and over again. That poor camera was just fighting. I don't know. It's just observed phenomenon, and we got enough people seeing this weird stuff happening that we're all starting to like pay closer attention to it.
Right, right. You don't want to believe that. You don't. I mean, there's clueless to this weird stuff they do. You know, like my very first experiment, all 4 of our flashlights went dead at the same time. And then they started working again when we got clear the heck out of the area.
Well, that was the same area where you had the orbs paralleling you, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, and then we had orbs paralleling us, so even to this day, I still don't know which one was messing with us, the Bigfoot or the orbs.
Or, yeah, or both. Or
both, I don't know.
That's part of the problem with that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's just, it's really weird, the observed phenomenon that goes along with some of this stuff and the sightings and stuff. And I know a lot of people talk about there's probably a connection between Bigfoot and UFOs and stuff like that. And there's more people that are coming forward, you know, saying that blah, blah, I saw this, that, the other thing. But, you know, I've been out there in the woods and doing research for years and years and years and years. And I've never seen anything that would make me think that there's a connection between Bigfoot and UFOs. Like, you know how active that area was that we were in? There wasn't any UFO anything going on.
No, and I never see any around here. Well, except for the day after the government announced they were real. I says, well, then I'll start looking up in the sky. And I looked up, and here goes a little satellite across the sky. I thought, yeah, that's pretty nice. And I just turned around and went the other way. And it wasn't an airplane or anything. It was definitely, like a satellite or something that bright. And I went, okay, I give up.
Yeah.
That's too much Twilight Zone for me. First 2 minutes, I'm looking in the sky.
Well, Mike, he's got those infrared goggles with night vision goggles, monocle that he likes to play with. And while we're up there at the research area, if it's a nice clear sky, we'll go away from the campfire out on the road and look up at the sky and see if we can spot anything. And it's way up there. But you do spot things moving around, erratic circuits and, irregular paths, stop dead, move the opposite direction, stuff like that. Well, that's not a satellite. And you can't see them with a naked eye. You got, in this case, it's all stuff he can pick it up with that monocle, but you can't really see it with a naked eye anyway. Right. But sometimes you can see this stuff with a naked eye on a nice clear night. And it looks like a little satellite, a little dot of light way up there, and it's going along, and all of a sudden it goes beep. Yeah, back the opposite direction. Like, wait. Even a plane couldn't fly a flight path like that at that speed.
No, they couldn't turn around that fast. And then I think this one even zipped off up into the stratosphere somewhere. And I just went, no way. Not on the first try in the first minute.
Yeah, well, I guess it's like anything else. If you're just ignoring it, then you don't see much sign of it. But if you start looking for it, then you start going, oh, geez, is there this much activity going on all the time, Eric, who was just on the show this fall and was up here with us in September, he does a lot of the UFO research and goes to hot spots where people see him a lot and stuff. And when he was on last fall, he was there in the Uinta Valley in between Blind Frog and Skinwalker Ranch. And they filmed a, glowing green flying triangle about the size of a battleship.
Look at that. It is a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously mean me no harm, so
what a fucking trip, dude.
That just showed up, so I was like, is that a planet or what the heck is that?
You're as strong as steel. You will not freak out.
Look at my zoom. Come over here and look at my zoom.
Because they don't want you to be
Yeah, you see it. You see it's a triangle.
So, there's weird stuff up there.
Yeah,
generally people don't look up,
My ex-wife said one of those landed across the lake from her when she was young. Big triangle, size of a battleship.
And that's when she was young. You think we had that technology then?
I don't think so. It ain't us. I don't care what they say. We ain't got it.
Yeah. I mean, Nana isn't that old, but, it wasn't like back in the biplane days or anything. But still, it was at a point in the history where they shouldn't have had ridiculous technology like that.
One of the interesting things Nana and I noticed this year, we don't research. We just go out and camp where they live all the time, and because we like to camp there, and we like to go to a place where there's good scenery, look over the Wallowas or look over, hundreds of miles.
Oh, and they love it when you visit, too. It gives them opportunity to practice their pushing trees over skill.
Right, that. And then this year was really something. But one thing we've noticed, though, is you'd be sitting around camp and you'll hear a tree knock, and we noticed we never paid any attention to them before. Branches breaking, tree knocks. So we're in the woods, right? Mm-hmm. And then at the end of this one weekend, we saw one, and and a whole family of them stayed right by our camp all weekend. But she says, I don't realize it, but I never pay any attention to those kind of sounds when we've been out camping. They've been going on our whole lives, but we just don't pay attention to them, do we? And I said, yeah, that's it. I noticed that too. And but I don't think I told you this one this year. Like I reported before, Nana, what got me started looking was Nana saw one looking in the window.
Right,
scared the living, scared the living daylights out of her. And so when she said Papa, let's go camping. We were going to go pick some morels too.
Oh yeah.
She goes, I want to go see one again. Take me where I can see one. And I says, are you flipping nuts? I thought we decided we weren't going to go look for them. If they want to come bug us, okay. And she goes, I want to see one again. I says, well, let's see how we can compromise on this. So I got to thinking, I remember this spot where I hear that goofy, deep, talking sometimes when I'm out mushrooming. And tree knocks and stuff like that. I heard whoops and stuff. And so I said, well, let's go camp there. There wasn't really a campsite or anything, but we got to a Y in the road, and the two Ys were closed off. There was a nice big meadow. There was a steep, semi-steep hillside up this way, and a flat out this way, and then it went up. And I looked at this place and I went, that's a perfect bowl, we're vulnerable right here. And there's a nice little meadow for the doggies to play in and a mud hole for them to goof around in if they want to. And so we set up the camp and got out with pitching tables and, cooking gear and tent and sleeping bags, and got out the lawn chairs and just sat there looking at that little meadow and kicking it, and got down. Well, I think it was about 7 o'clock, got towards dark. The sun was right down level on the horizon almost. And I thought, well, better build a fire before it gets dark. And it had stopped raining that morning, but the 3 days before that it just poured. And so everything was soaked. So I had this damn camera hanging around my neck in case anything showed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I took it off, put it on a table, walked over to the edge of the campsite, and stuck my head up inside of a little tree to get some little twigs to light on fire for the campfire. And then it goes, Papa, get your gun, they're here. Oh, I go, who's here? Why do I need to shoot somebody? She goes, I said, who's here? And she goes, Bigfoot. And I went, where? She goes, he was right there in the middle of the road. I was standing there, it was about 70 yards away. I was staring, squinting my eyes, trying to see if it had breasts, because I wanted to know if it was a male or a female. And I heard a noise behind me. I turned around to look behind me and turned back around, and the thing was gone. And I don't know why. I had the sticks in my hand or dropped them. Anyway, I walked over to where she was standing, and I started peeking into the trees, Have you ever wondered why Bigfoot sways back and forth?
So you
Look
can
in
look
the
through
tree.
the obstacles. Yeah.
When you're looking through the trees, you always do this, don't you? I wonder if that's what they're doing too. Anyway, I saw something hopping. It looked like two deer hopping away from me. But what it really was the legs of a Bigfoot, tip showing their sole, and then, it was feet walking away.
Right.
And then it got back in the trees, hidden a little bit more, and it turned right and just went right around the camp. And for about 3 or 4 seconds, I just watched it. It wasn't worried. It was showing itself. It could have kept going straight and disappeared, but it turned and went down below the camp. But I think the whole family was down there, because we started hearing knocks and whoops and a little one howl and some of that dang talking. And we went, it was shortly after we saw it. I went and got the gun. Went and got my little backpack that had the gun in it, and just set it down by me. I said, Nana, this gun will not do anything to a Bigfoot. It's a 22 Magnum. I got it for the wolves if they want to bug our dogs. And our dogs didn't do anything but just sit there nice and quiet. And actually, I don't know what anybody did while I was looking at it. My jaw was on the ground. My heart was in my throat. As really, and I looked at Nana and I says, I saw one. I finally saw one for sure.
Finally. And sometimes it's hilarious like that. People that have already made up their mind for years, maybe decades, that they're real. And then they finally see one and it's still like, oh, holy crap.
Holy crap. And yep, I sat down beside her and then it dawned on me, we just saw a Bigfoot. I said, Nana, if you want to get in that car with me right now, and that truck, and just drive the hell out of here, we don't even need to pack up camp. We can leave right now if you want. She goes, I didn't get the fear from it this time. Let's just sit here and see what happens. Okay. And that was, and the next morning I went up to, Nana said they marched around the camp all night, one of them or something, and I had gotten smarter this time. I put a dog bed right beside our bed, so Trigger, my big 100-pound lab, didn't try and get in a sleeping bag with me and shove me out of it. He just shoved up against me, and our little chocolate lab puppy got down in the bottom of the sleeping bag, and with the Chihuahua. But we just heard him.
How the animals like to do that. Hey, Nana.
She's
we've noticed that when the Sasquatch are around, that the other animals try and squeeze as close to you as they can for some reason. Dogs hide between your legs and tuck their tails and pee themselves, and other interesting phenomena.
Yeah, it was funny. And then the next morning I got up to pick some morels, and we didn't have phone service down in the hollow, but when I got up to the top of the mountain, all the way up the mountain, I kept hearing this little tick, 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 tick. And it sounds like a little wren or a nuthatch or something. And I've heard that all my life, paralleling me in the woods around here. Not all the time, and only in the, not only in the day, but mostly in the day. When it's not in the day, that ain't a bird. So I've gone over to look, what was ticking in the bushes a few times, and found a little wren, and a lot of times nothing.
Mm.
And so I'm hearing this tick, and it dawned on me, I haven't heard that for a while. There's one right there. And so I stopped, it stopped. I went, it went. I stopped, it stopped. And then I heard it run up the hill when I was trying to catch it in between bushes. I heard the little rocks roll down the hill. I went, so you're here, aren't you? I don't mean any harm. I just want to pick some of these morels. And I'm not going to try and get a picture. I'm not going to try and do anything. And if you want to follow me around, that's fine. And then I called you up and says, Duke, they're right here.
Yeah. And I'm like, did they push over any trees yet?
No, and they haven't since last year, but.
Well, that's good. You're getting to be on better terms with them, apparently.
Nana, darling.
What?
Would you turn that back on?
No. I have to keep walking in front of the camera.
That's all right. We're going to make a movie star out of you.
Yeah.
Like this?
She made a face at me that some will know as the clown. Never mind. You've heard of that, haven't you?
Yeah.
She saw me looking at that show the other day or something. I got slapped on the head. But now she keeps making that face at me.
So anyway, getting back to picking mushrooms and having them follow you around, if you said that out loud, after that, did you have any more trouble? Was he still following you? Could you still tell, or?
I could not tell that he was following me anymore, but no, when I was talking to you on the phone, I could hear him crunching around up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of.
But
That's
But they
like
didn't bother us. We could hear them wood knock. Heck, you know, I really got some good research in there, actually. Too bad I didn't have a recorder. Kept forgetting to buy one. But I could hear when they banged on a tree with a good solid stick that wouldn't break, on a bare bark, you know, tree with no bark. You can hear that. That's a big solid, you know, pop, like a baseball bat hitting on a tree. And I could tell when they hit on the bark. Then I was pretty sure these were some teenagers. There was a couple of teenagers and mom and dad up there. And it says, I don't think all of them can mind speak because I'm not getting nothing.
no.
And
According to my experts on the subject, not all of them can, especially with humans. Like most humans basically don't know how to do it, so they don't bother to try anyway. And you know, the paranormal abilities they have seems to depend on age and training. Like the little ones don't have any, and the older, bigger ones seem to have more things they can do, more tricks up their sleeve or in their bag of tricks, if you will.
that makes sense because even us, a lot of times, need some training about those kind of things.
Yep.
So anyway, I went back down the hill, showed Nana the mushrooms, and told her about the ticking and being paralleled. And she says, well, nothing happened up here. It was a nice, quiet morning. And we sat around most of the day, and the dogs at first were playing in the mud hole in the creek and just having a dang blast. And then they came over and laid down by the chairs, flat on the ground, facing where I saw that Bigfoot walking across the hill, and they would bend way down like this and peek out there, and maybe Minnie would growl a little. She's a vicious little chihuahua. And
I'm sure she terrified the poor Sasquatch.
she stayed under the chair and just looked. And they didn't go play over there by that creek anymore. But I'm looking at Nana, I go, look at our dogs, Nana. They see something over there sneaking up on us. They're watching it. We could watch the dogs watch it over there. We never could see it, but you could tell the dogs were seeing it.
Oh, yeah. That one time we were up at Coloma, we had, what was it, 5 or 6 people up there. And burning ban on, so we couldn't have a campfire. So we got a Karasun sitting in the fire ring, pretending to be a campfire, throwing a little bit of heat, but no light. And the dog hunkers down low on the ground and puts his nose almost down on the ground, starts looking off in the woods and going, and his owner goes, what are you seeing, Hank? What's out there, Hank? He goes, oh, Hank's freaking out about something. There's something out there in the woods. And I went, well, it's probably just a Sasquatch. And everybody in camp looks at me, and I'm like, well, what the hell did we come up here for? I told you they're around here. That's probably the most obvious thing that could be around here. It's one of them sneaking up on us. We found tracks every damn time we've been up here.
Yeah, that's...
Well,
that's
here's the
funny,
funnier
dogs.
part, though. After we went to sleep, Jeff and his buddy Travis had their tents way far away from where everybody else was. And he had an audio recorder going in his tent, and it had a program that would just ignore all ordinary sounds that were in the environment. And then when something out of the ordinary happened, it would click on and record it. But every 20 minutes all night long, it picked up either footprints walking past his tent or a hand going shh, like the fingers across the nylon making that noise. One time he saw it happen. It woke him up. And he jumped out with his cell phone somehow as he's unzipping the tent and trying to do everything else. Who's out here? And he's filming himself. And it's like, wow, that was amazing, you know. But there was nothing there. And the only break he had all night long in that regular 20-minute interval was in between, I want to say it was 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd have to go back and look at the old show. There was about 40 minutes where there wasn't any sound happening. And what was happening during that 40-minute interval is Shane got up, crawled out of his pickup that he was camping in, and had to go take a whiz. And while he was standing there taking a whiz, he saw one standing right in the tree line trying to pretend it was a pine tree. He ran his flashlight across it twice. Tree, 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 Harry, tree, tree, tree. Okay, that isn't right. Run it back the other way. Tree, 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 Harry. That's the Sasquatch. It's back to me. Tree, tree, tree. I'm going to zip up now and go back inside the camper. And
Oh,
that was the break where it went more than 20 minutes. It was 40 minutes. As soon as they were sure he was back asleep and snoring, then they went over and started messing with with Jeff's tent again.
yeah, that's Nana's.
Well, the
Oh,
other
I
funny
just
thing
forgot
that
what.
happened is the first thing, in the morning when Mike got up, he checked because he was one of the last people to get in his tent. And like they were so wanting to get up there and mess with us, they didn't even wait for him to go to sleep. He could hear one taking steps, slowly walking toward his tent, and it stopped between his big double trunk tree, which was right off to the side of where his tent was. So when he got up in the morning, he went and checked that spot. And sure enough, there's two 17-inch tracks right there. And he's standing in the spot looking, and he's like, you can see every camper and every tent in camp from that one spot. That's why I was in such a big hurry to get up there, to be the lookout so they could come in and mess around with everything else. Some of the
And
mushrooms we like, they like too, basically, but other ones they don't. And I talked to a couple of avid mushroom pickers over here in Montana, and they have never had an experience where they've been messed with while picking morels. Other types of mushrooms they have been messed with. And one of them's theory is that, well, basically you can't eat a morel raw, you'll get an upset stomach. We have to cook them.
Right.
And that may be
You have
why
to
they're
cook
not
'em.
interested in them, because if they eat them raw, they're going to get upset tummy too.
Nothing eats them, but there was the stumps. One of the other kind of mushrooms I like to get a little to eat is that cauliflower mushroom we got up here, coral mushroom, whatever
Oh
you
yeah,
want to call
those
it.
are good.
Yeah, and we get big, nice, and every one of them was bitten off or pinched off. I couldn't tell. It was bigger than elk teeth though, and no elk tracks, and about 150 pounds of them just gone.
Whoa. Something
And
thought they were yummy. Didn't find
yeah,
any bear tracks or anything else there?
no bear tracks. I might have found a bear track way down in the bottom, but they wouldn't be there with Bigfoot around.
Well, maybe it's a suicidal bear. You never know.
You never know. But yeah, just big tracks and all the coral mushrooms gone. Every kind of edible mushroom that you didn't have to cook. Just morels are out.
Interesting note here. When I was up in the Yak a few years ago with Grizz and his wondrous wife, we had a little side trip to an area where he had actually seen one a few years earlier, and he was having bad physical problems. He couldn't walk very far. So he kind of stayed down by the base of the trail that went up this mountain where he had seen one. And as we're going up, we find two tracks immediately. So it's like, well, they're still using this for a travel route. And as we go up, what else do we start seeing? Those coral mushrooms everywhere. You can see them from both sides of the trail. There's their munchies along their route. And she was collecting up a bunch of them, and I was looking for tracks, which I wasn't finding any more tracks, but I kept spotting those mushrooms. So she kept grabbing them. She had her bottom of her shirt pulled out, and as many as she could throw in there. And right at that point, we both heard this titanic impact. You could feel the ground shake. It was like as if somebody had dropped, like a 3-ton vehicle out of a tree without the crushing metal sound, just a wha-boom on the ground. And that was further up the trail, up the mountain from us. And I said, well, we should probably head back now. Because whoever was up there sitting in the tree watching us got antsy and decided we were getting too close, So yeah,
well,
she heard
yeah,
it too. So we both experienced that. It's like, wha-boom. Okay, what just did that?
Right. But yeah, we sat around that day and that night, and we would hear wood knocks once in a while, or talking, or a whoop or something, and just every now and then. And that's when Nana says, I would never have noticed these things before that guy looked in the window, I never would have noticed all these noises.
Yeah.
And we stayed up that night and went to bed, and they were marching around camp. Got up the next morning, and there was Rosie tracking something all around the camp, and then she tracked it back around the next way, and then she would come down. Every time she went around the camp, she would come down little finger paths towards the camp where they must have been sneaking down to peek at us. And we measured everything that we could measure, and that big guy we saw must have been like 9 feet tall.
Big
And
boy.
Nana
Yeah.
said he was standing there in the road, kind of to the edge of the road, with his head behind a limb, you know, come out to the side, and he just put his head behind the limb so you couldn't see his face.
Mm-hmm.
And she said it looked like he was pretending to be a tree, like he was just trying to disguise himself as a tree and not move.
That's the one that the Shane saw while he was out there taking a whiz at 3:30 in the morning. He has a little flashlight and he's playing on it. Like he said, at first I didn't even realize because it was the same shape and size as the pine trees it was standing in between, and it had its back to me. So it didn't register there's a face there because, you know, they don't have much of a neck and they got those big wide shoulders. And then with the hair, it's like whoop, Christmas tree. So he just turned his back to him and like, oh, no, he's got the flashlight on me. I'll hold still. He kept the beam going. Now he brought it back again and kept it going. Okay, I'm all fine, you know. But that was exactly what he was doing. He just froze in place and was pretending he was a pine tree, hoping to brazen it out. And the human with the flashlight wouldn't notice.
Probably works more often than not.
Yep. Except in this case, he was like, not that far away, like 50 feet, and like, those aren't pine needles, that's hair.
Yeah.
It was a little bit too
Oh, that'll
obvious with a
freak
nice
out.
strong flashlight at that range. Like, okay, either that's a tree covered in hair, or there's a Sasquatch right there with his back to me.
Yeah, that would freak a person out, wouldn't it?
Well,
You know,
he got
the
the guts.
next
He's been back with me a couple times since then and gone to my research areas. So he's got no shortage of guts, that's for sure.
So yeah, that last morning, Nana went off for a walk, and I just kicked it. I already had a bucket of mushrooms, and her and the dogs went for a walk, and she comes back and she goes, "Okay, Papa, I know what that ticking you've always talked about is." I says, "What, did they follow you?" And he goes, "Yep, it was ticking, 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 you know, just every now and then a little." And didn't scare the dogs, didn't scare me, just followed along and didn't follow me back. We packed up to leave, and we drive down this one little short section of road. So we got, I think it was about, you know, a little over, somewhere between a quarter and a half mile down from our campus where we kept hearing all these noises. And we stopped there because there's a little ridge I wanted to see if more morels grew on it, because they're just dandies in that spot. And then I wanted to look for some too. So where does she go? Right down to where I've been hearing all the noises all weekend. She didn't want to pick no damn mushrooms. She was going to go down there and and investigate. And I had to go down there and find her, and that lady had her whole shirt full of morels.
Yeah. You know, that's one thing. As much as you're not like an active researcher on the subject, and until, you know, very recently you weren't really doing that much to kind of look into it. You're kind of ignoring it as much as you could with your knowledge that you had on it. I find it interesting what, you know, a lot of people hear rock clacks, wood knocks, mouth pops, teeth snapping, you know, branches breaking, what else? Howls, whistles, all that kind of stuff. Very few researchers get to hear them talk.
Huh. And they do it up where you are. I heard like a couple of words when I was up peeing on the road. And they got a voice. They got a voice you can't miss. I don't know how to copy it or explain it, but there's a certain twang in their voice that, in the big males anyway.
Yeah. Now, if they decide to yell at you, it's going to vibrate your whole friggin' chest, you know, so you'll notice it.
I have noticed that for sure.
Have you had them roar at you before?
Yeah. There was this 1982. We just got back to elk hunting camp from way the hell out in those Wallowas, and just as it got dark and just as we got the fire lit, there was a roar come. Oh, it was right up by the Jeep. It was about 30, 40 yards away. And just blow your... It sounded like one of them big Simmental bulls to me, only the volume. And the fear. It put, you know, it vibrated the Simmental bulls don't do this. It vibrated our chest, vibrated my ears, scared the living daylights out of me. I had to come up with that Simmental bull real quick in my head to keep from panicking.
Freaking out. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're like wanting to leave immediately, but the roar just came from the Jeep.
No, God. Let's go toward the roar to get out of there. No.
So we just threw a lot of wood on that fire. We didn't have a clue what it was, so I thought it was a bull. My hunting partner believed in Sasquatch and knew all about him, and he was terrified all night. He didn't go to sleep a bit, and he said something walked around up in the trees above us all night. And on the other side of the river from the Jeep, or the creek anyway. Then, you know, just a tiny little spring with wonderful drinking water. The nice place to camp. I have heard so many weird things, had elk stolen, all kinds of weird things in this little section of this canyon. And next morning I get up and go to drive off, and Will says, let's go. I says, I got to look for tracks. I didn't hear that thing walking last night. If that was a big old, you know, yellow bull, we should have heard it crunching on the gravel right by the Jeep.
Yeah.
And it'll most definitely leave some dandy footprints that you can't miss. And so I'm walking around in circles, bigger and bigger circles, looking for the footprints or the tracks, you know. None. And finally Will goes, you either get in the Jeep now or I'm leaving you. I go, you're really that freaked out about this, aren't you? So I got in and we left. And,
Wow.
but that's the general area where I get all the trees pushed over at me. And,
Now, is that near the same area where you were camped when you were younger and you found those, you know, mud hole side 3-foot long tracks that you weren't even sure was a track when you found the first one, and then there was another one in front of it, and another one in front of that, and
yeah, it's about 15 miles away, over the top of the big ridge and way down in the bottom of that canyon where nobody goes and nobody lives. And
people maybe should avoid. Maybe people should avoid going there, considering what's there. Now, didn't your son find similar tracks out there, same area?
Now, up on your way up over that hill, there's some hillside swamps, you know, that are kind of scary to get into because you get up to your crotch stuck in the mud and sand.
Oh, God, no.
But on the edges of that, he saw these, you know, tracks like this, 2 feet long and full of water stuck there. Some of them were dried out and just big friggin' tracks. And he goes, yeah, but they get bigger when they dry out. And I go, no. That's snow melting.
Snow melt, yeah.
But,
oh, good Lord. So, yeah, there's something gigantic walking around up there. Have you heard reports out of that mountain area from anyone or any source of anything other than Sasquatch sightings, like giant-sized things?
No, other than the legends and, you know, yeah, there's a few people's reports that they heard weird noises, whistling and stuff over in Hell's Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked the Nez Perce chief what in the heck that was, you know, they described the interaction. He says, that's stick Indians. Get the hell out of there. And to the Nez Perce, stick Indians are mountain giants.
Yeah, Hobbits or people eaters. Stick Indians, not the same thing as Sasquatch.
Right. So And I've heard that whistling a lot too. There's quite a few different kinds of them. There's this regular old whistle, you know, just, and then there's a long, high-pitched one that goes on for too long. There it is.
That one.
There it
Yep.
is.
I've heard it. And you can tell
There
it
it
ain't a
is.
bird, and it's really loud, and you're like, okay, what the crap is doing that?
Right. And where are we getting birds at night? And then there's we got they like try and I don't know if they're trying to mimic a Canadian goose, but we have some things in this canyon sometimes that sound like a goose flying and honking, only they suck at it so bad, it's almost, it's almost like a really bad Canada goose honk or a goofed up whoop or something, you know.
We were hearing one sitting on across a canyon from us making this noise. It was right toward twilight. And about every minute and a half, 2 minutes, he'd make this noise. And we kept hearing it. We could not identify what this was. It was not a normal animal. It was really loud. And after about 20 minutes of it, I went, did that remind you guys of like a frog croaking? So then, of course, you repeated shortly after that. And that's exactly what it sounded like. It sounded like about an 800-pound frog doing a frog croak.
Right. Going on forever.
Yeah, about every minute and a half, 2 minutes, they would do another one. You'd be like, what the? And this is coming from the other side of the canyon. There ain't no frog big enough to make that kind of volume of noise. And there's no water up there. Very strange stuff.
Yeah.
Well, was there
I love it.
any other recent encounters or reports you wanted to give as long as you're on here? Because we're running a little long right now.
Yeah, I can't think of anything, you know.
Well, I'm just happy you and Nana both got a chance to see one. You got to see one running away, but better than you did up in my area. They were all over the damn place, but you didn't get to actually see one. You just got to.
Yeah, you said, hey, come over here and look at this one. It was just starting to get light, and there was a bump on the side of the little tree.
That one, yeah.
But it also had a head, and the head slowly just faded backwards. Just went backwards and but it was so dark it was hard to tell. So I just.
Well, the sun was
okay.
just, to tell everybody else what was going on there. We were the only two awake. The sun was just starting to come up, and there's this one tree that's got a little crook in it across the river. And I spotted one over there with his head where that crook is, looking at us, because it completes the shape of the tree, so you don't notice it. Right. And that's why I pointed it out to him. I said, "There's one right over there watching us right now. Keep your eye on him." And Papa Craig, he sat right there for minutes. Yeah, he sat right there for minutes watching him as the sun was slowly coming up. And that little sucker knew Papa had his eyes on him, so he's slowly backing up, trying to get out of you.
Straight away till he was out of sight. I wonder what the heck and I thought I saw him go over to where I got zapped at too, so I don't know. But that was, so dark it could have been a bird, could have been anything, but it could have been him, because I walked over there and now out went the legs and the guts and the brain and
zap. Yeah, what was that about? Like 20 minutes later? Oh, it's light enough. We can see tracks now. Let's walk up the river and see if we can find some. We get about 60, 70 feet from camp, and all of a sudden you're like, dude, I can't walk. I got spaghetti legs. Feel weird, something happening. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. And then when I, finally decided I wasn't completely very badly damaged and got my tent and went to sleep, then I realized without, you being around and to ease the fear, that I was in abject terror.
Yeah, man, I don't know what the heck was going on to that, because at the same time that was happening, I was the only person still awake. I'm sitting there by the campfire with my back to the woods, and I fall asleep sitting in the chair. And meanwhile, you're 30 feet away in the tent getting hit by this terror thing, so it was like totally centered on you. Whatever it was an area of effect because it wasn't getting me.
I've heard that from a few people, too. There they are laying in abject terror, and then all of a sudden they fall asleep, too. That's quite a few people's story right there.
I know, I've heard that quite a few times, and there's no rational explanation for that. Look, if you're terrified, the last thing you're going to do is go to sleep.
Go to sleep, yeah.
You're afraid something's going to kill you. You're going to want to stay awake. And yet you hear that quite a few times, especially the people in the tent. Like all of a sudden, like I heard something outside the tent. I'm terrified. And then I woke up, and you're like, what? Where's the rest of the story? I don't know. Somehow I fell asleep, and then I woke up again.
Yeah, that's weird. But yeah, that's about all I can.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll have you back in another year after you manage to have more of them push trees over here or something. Maybe the next time you get one near you, you'll actually be able to get them on the video or something. You never can tell.
Right. Well, it doesn't matter. You can get the most perfect video, I think, and nobody's ever going to believe it anymore.
I know, but it's still fun.
It's still fun. We'll believe it. We'll know.
Yeah. The more of us that get videos and pictures of them, the more it's like, oh, we're in the secret club of people that know they're real and give you videos and pictures and ha ha ha.
Right.
Yeah. I remember talking to one of the guys who's been on my show repeatedly, Rich Soul from Knox Gigas Research. And also been out with BFRO expeditions, and he's the only person I know of that has not one but 2 books out on tree structures. And I said, what do you think about some of these TV shows like Finding Bigfoot? And there's a long pause. It's not that damn hard.
With all the people they had and cameras and crew, they were never going to find one.
No. And they probably didn't have the insurance coverage for in case they actually did find one.
Right. So they probably didn't even go where one is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the trouble with the big shows. Hey, there's something new I'm studying. It's a stupid show on History Channel, I think, called the Alaskan Killer Sasquatch.
Oh, interesting.
Those native Alaskans from Nanwalek, which is right next to Portlock, they own Portlock. They're overpopulated in Nanwalek, and they want to move back to Portlock.
Oh, God, are you kidding me?
And so they sent 4 guys to spend this last summer there.
Right.
And it's lame because these guys are terrible actors, and they sound like Indians reading a script, But a lot of weird stuff was happening to them. I imagine most of the evidence shown on the TV is, reenacted, but I don't doubt that the things happened to those guys. Plus, what I really like is hearing a bunch more history and the story from the natives themselves of what happened there. Yeah. It was a lot worse than we ever hear.
Oh yeah, they downplay the details a lot about the people being ripped apart and parts floating down the river into town and lots of bad things happening. There was a reason they gave up working at this cannery and abandoned the whole place. And that reason, they presume, was the Nantinak. The Nantinak are not friendly, hairy men. They don't like humans.
They're not. Nantinak don't like them.
They don't like us. They'll throw things at us or just tear us apart and throw us in the river to float downtown.
Yeah. So anyway, they went there and spent the summer, and Ron Moorhead came up and did some call blasting for them, and they got some answers, and he spent the day with them or something. And
yeah, I'd heard about that part independently, and Ron kind of wasn't in favor of doing that and said, I'll do this for you guys, but whatever happens, it's your fault. I'm not going to be blamed for it because I'm warning you in advance this ain't a good idea. Well, yeah, and of course, as soon as they blast the calls, then they have activity that night. Well, what a surprise. But Ron didn't stick around from what I understood. He got the heck out of there after they did the call blasting thing.
Right, he did that, and he said, well, you have a Bigfoot here, and got in a helicopter and left.
Go, Ron.
They brought a dizzy little blonde medium chick in there and she walked out into the forest where everybody was getting killed and turned around, walked back and got on a helicopter and left. So I don't like it here. I don't like it here. And then they brought a guy in with dogs to see if the dogs would be a little security for him, to give him a little fair warning before not to knock the side into the tent or whatever, you know. And the guy with the dogs spent the day and the night, and then got in a helicopter and left. And he was one of their villagers, you know. So
yeah, he knew better. That's why one of my friends that's always lived in Alaska, I asked about years ago about Portlock, and they said, well, we actually went there because, you know, we were crazy kids and we had access to a boat that could make it there. So we decided we would go there because we heard it was haunted. And I said, so what did you discover? Well, after a day, we figured out it was haunted, not by ghosts. And we got the hell out of there. I'm never going back to that place, is what she said.
it might have ghosts too. There was about 3 expeditions there in the 17 and 1800s. People died. Another, you know, settlement wiped out, and they left. And
Well, according to her, when they were there for the half a day, they found the tracks right on the beach. And they're like, yeah, now we know it's haunting this area. Let's go.
yeah. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, it's kind of lame done, and I'm pretty sure that, you know, I don't even know if they were staying in their dang little tent. For all I know, they had a luxury yacht parked in the bay.
Yeah, it's much safer to be out on the yacht, and they have to at least swim out and try and board the thing to get at you. So hopefully the killer whale will keep them away.
Right. And then they had things bumping into them in the water when they were trying to check for halibut. But this is pretty interesting.
Hopefully I can get this one friend of mine to come on the show. He already said that he would do it, and he's got several really strange reports of Sasquatch, one possible mountain giant, one that I've already repeated before. But he ran into a native girl from north coastal Alaska that was talking about these weird things that her tribe were seeing out on the ocean that looked like Bigfoot. And they would swim under the water with their kills. Where the hell are they going?
That's the same thing these natives were investigating here, too. Is Bigfoot in the water? What's going on? And those guys in Southeast say, oh, yeah, we've seen them swimming across these channels all the time. They're friggin' 10 miles wide, you know?
Yeah. Well, in this case, they said they were seeing them sitting on ice floes and catching seals and stuff like that and killing them. And then every time they get something, they dive under the water with it. Where the hell are they going? And when like a dead whale would wash ashore, they'd, you know, tear chunks off, and again, they'd go back in the water with them.
I don't know what's up with these guys, but they can do a lot more than we think they can, I think.
Well, their suspicion up there is because of the geothermal activity and whatnot, that there's probably underwater caves that they're using for a place to stay. And nice, easy way to keep humans or anybody else from catching you. Go up on the surface, grab your food, swim back down into the cave with it.
Right. I was, that show gave me a good memory too. Whenever we were cruising from either, from Seward to Homer or from Sitka to Homer, there's an island right outside of that, Portlock Bay there, Port Chatham. And we would always cut inside that island because it's a shortcut. So I don't know how many times I've cruised right by Portlock and looked at that little bay. What a wonderful place it is. It is just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And,
if only it wasn't for the Nantinak that will tear you to pieces and throw you in the river, it'd be a great place to live.
If it wasn't for that, it'd be full of, I wonder if their Aleuts are Athabascans. I never looked that up yet. But it would be full of people.
Yeah. Well, some creepy stuff. And thanks for coming on the show and updating us on the latest Bigfoot stuff from over there where you live, and also, of course, on the giant squid sighting. Because, like, man, there's very few people ever get to actually see a giant squid in the wild.
Yeah. Well, I got told I didn't, but But that was before any of the scientists had seen one.
Yeah, and now they photographed them and stuff. The Japanese got photographs of them deep underwater, and like we were talking about earlier, that Monster Quest guy or whatever that figured out how to get a picture of one. You just strap a camera to one of those smaller Humboldt squids, dump it back in the water, and when it goes down deep, maybe one of the big ones will grab it. And that's exactly what happened. And it took a landlubber from Minnesota to figure it out. Ha ha, coastal guys, ha ha. Oh, Lordy.
Yeah.
Minnesotans are good at getting themselves in trouble. So anyway.
Yeah, they are. They're dang good at it.
They're dang good at getting in trouble. All right, brother. Well, thanks for being on the show again. Really appreciate it. Everybody else out there, hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, knock that thumbs up button. And remember to join us back here for our next show, which will be way cool. I guarantee it. And so, meanwhile, like I said, everybody take care of everybody else. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puck, would you? And for God's sake, whatever you do not hug the Wookiee.